ADHD, 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 ADHD. I was one of those people who thought that ADHD wasn't really real. Not even that it wasn't real, but it wasn't such a big deal, right? And it can easily be regulated. But tell me if you resonate with this. When you get hundreds of ideas, but you struggle to even execute one? Or you go through these motivational bursts where you hyperfocus like Neo from the Matrix. But then your brain shuts down like someone poured a bucket of water on the CPU and now you're completely fried. Welcome everyone to the world of ADHD, one of the world's most misunderstood brain types. ADHD feels like having a brain that was built for a world that doesn't exist anymore. And this is a brain type that an estimated 10% of the world population has. Some have a more extreme form than others. If you watch this channel and you're into spirituality and you're generally a creative mind, then you're probably more likely to have this brain type. And it's not the end of the world if you do, but I'd like to go through some of the signs that could be an indicator that you might have it. Before I go through this isn't like me coming from this like, yes, I know everything there is to know. You don't need to go to a psychologist or take pills. Just listen to your mate Tommy and I'll make all your problems go away. I'm just a dude who's gone through this my whole life, and what I say may resonate with you or may not. But this is a very misunderstood brain type that if you don't know how to properly deal with it, it can be absolutely debilitating, for sure. There's no right, Felix. Felix has ADHD, actually, don't you? But he doesn't give a fuck, because he doesn't have to pay taxes and find a career, a loved one. He's good, eating, shitting, living in this house. And this kind of goes back to the having a brain that was built for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Because I don't want to go too deep into it, but just very, very quick. So the hunter type theory basically says that ADHD is not a disorder, but more of a leftover evolutionary brain type, where your brain's wired more for novelty seeking, quick reflexes, hyper-focusing, and risk-taking in a chaotic environment. Whereas the farmer is more wired for routine, patience, delayed gratification, more of that 9 to 5 cycle. So most people are wired for this. That's why I remember when I was younger, I couldn't perceive, like, how could people be happy just being in a routine, doing the same thing all the time, like working, my brain couldn't compute. Of course, as I've gotten older and developed empathy and have life experience, like, okay, of course, we're built differently. Duh. But it's important to understand your brain type and why you're wired the way you are, because unfortunately with ADHD, people with this brain type get judged a lot, especially growing up, because we think differently. For me, in class, I was either really good or just I just couldn't focus because I didn't give a shit. And so in this video, I wanted to go through just a few common signs, that I personally go through. I know a lot of others, which you may relate with and might give off a light bulb moment of, oh, I thought that was just like a weird thing that I did, but it's a common ADHD pattern. One of the common patterns, definitely in my life, is that I cannot find motivation to do things that I don't care about. And it's very, very difficult for the hunter brain type to put a lot of time, energy, and effort into something that you just don't believe is important to you, which is why school is incredibly hard unless you genuinely love the subject. When I did music, or I remember in high school I made a cartoon in computer class. So there were a few times where I was like, I got switched on, I was motivated, I did the extracurricular activities at home and I was just zoned in. But when it was to do with subjects like Shakespeare, because like now of course I can understand reading Shakespeare has value, and I'm sure I could have found a way to make myself give a shit more, but the teachers were horrible at understanding, or not understanding, but I feel like my teachers anyway were really bad at motivating the kids and speaking in our language. But I remember in English class when we'd have to read all these Shakespeare books, it was like, are you serious? Why on God's green earth should I learn about this old dead guy's books who doesn't even speak proper English anymore? And there is a neurological explanation for this is our dysfunctional dopamine system, right? So ADHD or hunter type folks tend to have a very low dopamine baseline, so it takes more stimulation to get us going. So small, meaningless tasks, it's like, you want to kill yourself. It's so excruciatingly bored. Like, boredom is like death, for the hunter brain type. That's why a lot of ADHD folk tend to fidget or look around, or because they're seeking for that next reward. Because back in the wild, that's how we survived, man. That's how we thrived. And I noticed that pattern as I got older, because now, like, for example, if I make like a big documentary piece or like a cartoon episode or just like a big project that takes a lot of my time and energy, I'm loving the process and I finally finish it. And then when it comes to posting it or like sending an email or like just the little things that are actually very important that you got to do after, it's just... And so a way to hack your dopamine system to do boring, meaningless tasks, like, it seems so obvious, but... And so, man, this is one of those fucking ADHD moments where I just get lost in the mental fog because I lost the momentum. Just want to give you a bit of a raw sneak peek of what it's actually like. And that's why sometimes making these videos, it can be very, very, very challenging when I don't have a script or something to look at, even if it's dot points or something to just keep my mind on track. Otherwise, it's very easy for you to be like, whoop, squirrel, and you chase a squirrel. Because back in the day, that squirrel was sustenance and nutrition. But now, they're just mental squirrels leading... Well, sometimes they can lead to gold, to be fair, but anyways. But something that helps me to do these meaningless tasks is to do a dopamine boosting activity before, like cold exposure or intense exercise. And that's why cardio, like intense cardio to the point where you're sweating and it's particularly good for ADHD people. It helps regulate their focus and system, and they're like, you can get in the zone that way. Because it's a big misunderstanding that ADHD people struggle to focus, because it's like, yeah, of course, that's definitely true, but then there's also the other side of the coin, which is we can focus better than all you motherfuckers if you align yourself properly and optimize your brain. Easier said than done, but it is possible. Another very common pattern is time blindness. That's basically where you lose all concept of time. You don't even feel it passing. And sometimes time can go real quick or incredibly slow. But my wife told me that apparently women with ADHD struggle with time blindness even more intensely. And I've seen it. It's like, how long are you going to be? 15 minutes, like 40 minutes later. And every time, like, hey, just overestimate how long you're going to take, because your time perception is like really off. And I get that too. And that can lead to overestimating yourself with deadlines, and very easy to fall behind in assignments and projects and things like that. And when this gets too out of control, it can severely impact relationships. And because I think all my friends have ADHD actually, because they struggle with this sometimes. Like when they're in their own world, me too, it's hard to peek your head out and interact with the world, because it's like, yeah, I'm focused on this right now. But then the time blindness, sometimes it's like, I just need a week to rest, and that week could turn into 6 months, very easy. Another common pattern with the ADHD brain type is this emotional dysregulation and impulsivity, And this can come up in weird ways, like imposter syndrome. And you could argue that a lot of us struggle with this, and it's true, but in the ADHD brain, it comes up very intensely because the ADHD brain type tends to be more emotionally sensitive, it can react more intensely towards judgment or failure. And you could even be really amazing at something, and you're still going to be like, this is shit. And if you don't nip it in the bud, this could lead to creating all these things but never putting it out in the world, because you're shit scared of failure, of people judging you. And I go through this all the time. I think that's why Every now and again, I'll go through like my 6-month shame spiral where I'll kind of disappear for a while and basically look at everything that I'm doing as, this is shit, this ain't worth putting out, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you kind of snap out of it, and then you look at like 99% of the stuff that goes out in the world and you're like, oh, come on. If Johnny over here is putting shit out, like, come on. My stuff can't be that bad, can it? And so you got to kind of prepare for that a little bit, or when it does come, not judge yourself so harshly for it. Especially when you're young, you think you're more special and unique than what you really are. And then as you get older, you start to realize, oh, actually, no, I'm not really that unique or special at all. There are millions upon millions of people who go through the exact same problems that I'm going through. And, you know, people with specific brain types have more specific problems, right? More common patterns that pop up. And it can be challenging because, like, I'm not going to lie, I used to think ADHD was like this, just a pure gift to mankind. I thought, I mean, yeah, I was aware of the potential drawbacks of it, but all I looked at was like, yeah, but what about the creativity? Because ADHD people tend to be highly creative. That's why pretty much everyone in Hollywood has ADHD. We can go on and on about just the common patterns that ADHD brain types go through, and people becoming more aware as time goes on, right? But there are certain things that people don't warn you about, like forgetting what you're saying, like me right now. I used to think that this was just a purely a positive thing until I got older and the negatives started to become more pronounced. And this is what most people don't tell you about ADHD, is that if you're in the wrong environment, trying to basically fit your square peg in a round hole, it's going to bite you in the ass later. Farmer type people, which is most of the population, they're really good at just sucking it up, right? Just suck it up, mate. We all have to fucking suffer through work. Quit bitching it, right? And then there's the extra shame and judgment that goes along with it. Because most people, unfortunately, can't really put themselves out of themselves. They just live life through their mind, their unique experience, and judge others for not living the way they do or not thinking the way they do. Or, hey, I do this. It's like some people like, I remember growing up with these people in high school who would wear shorts in the winter, and if you were to wear pants, it's like, you're a pussy, mate. Suck it up, you know? And sometimes it's true. We're going to suck it up. Let's be fair here. It's not as simple as just suck it up. Because sometimes sucking it up, decade after decade after decade, can lead to a very catastrophic outcome. It's like Solomon said in the Old Testament, there is a time for, you know that one, there's a time to kill, there's a time to heal, there's a time to dance, there's a time to kneel, there's a time to blah, 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 blah. It's basically a story about duality. There's a time for X, and there's a time for the opposite of that. And that's what seasons and cycles is all about, is that it's not black and white. So there's a time to suck it up, and there's a time to, no, I'm going to change this situation right now. I don't accept. I'm just basically tying this back to the beginning where I said ADHD is like having a brain designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. And it is true, but we are human beings. Therefore, we can adapt, and we are adapting. It's just, it can be extra challenging is all in this dopamine or highly stimulating world, and all these technologies hijacking the dopamine system, and some people are more prone to these addiction loops than others. And so it's like, there's just a lot of obstacles, right? There's a lot of shit we gotta be aware of and try to just plow through it. Just suck it up, I guess. Anyways, we can just keep going on and on and on about ADHD, the different patterns, potential solutions, how to optimize your environment, the history, maybe even going to some studies. There's many different routes we can go. But I was having one of those days today where my brain was just really drained. And I got all these projects that I'm juggling at once. And I thought, you know what? I just want to make a raw video, speak from the heart, and based on memory of what I know about ADHD and stuff, because I know that this is a bit left field, some of you may think, for this channel, but I know that a lot of you struggle with this. And I think that some of you aren't even aware that you have it. Like Dakota, my mate Dakota, he's just now, and he's like pretty much the same age I am, right? So he's in his 30s, and he always kind of thought about ADHD, but only now he's starting to realize, like, oh, fuck, like, I really do have it. And I used to think of that as like, oh, you don't want to, just ignore it, it's not real, because then if you identify with it, then you become a victim, then you start identifying with like, oh, it's ADHD, you start blaming all your problems on ADHD, right? Don't want to do that. That's a bitch move. But it helps a lot learning about your brain type. Imagine playing an RPG game and you choose a dark elf, but you have no idea you're a dark elf. You think you're a freaking human. But then learning about the dark elf, it's like, oh, okay, so I'm resistant to this. I have, I've got this strengths, this weaknesses. It just helps you have more information and know what to avoid and what to lean into. That's all this really is. And I didn't want this video just to go on this deep dive on ADHD or try to pretend like I'm in this authoritative position, because I'm not. I'm just a dude struggling with it, as many people do, but sometimes I thrive on it as well. If you enjoy this type of topic, let us know, and I can go into specific deep dives on ADHD and share what I've learned along my journey. And if not, all good. Love you guys. Say goodbye, everybody.